optimization for Lightning Web Components. In general, Lightning Web Components, it's a modern standard that it's required, like specific architecture for us to build an application. So let's go through the topics. So first of all, data loading pattern for speed. So in general, it's the best practice for us to prioritize Lightning Data Service for simple CRUD operations, like for example, create, read, update, delete. And in that case, it will allow us, with the help of Lightning UI API models, to get a situation when we have automatically cached data, reducing service requests and speeding up load time. So we will get, like a bunch of benefits when we're just using, and plus, like less lines of code that we need to actually write in order to be able to complete the logic. So next item is actually when we need to use wire or when we need to use imperative apex. So when we're using wire, so it's React apex, and it's use data retrieval that must react to variable change. So let's imagine that we have a record ID. If record ID is changed, right, so then it should automatically react. The platform actually caches results and automatically call the apex method when bound variables change. So it's actually improving efficiency. So from other hand, we have imperative apex. So it's actually a reserve as is for DML. We need to reserve it for DML, like a create, update, delete, or any kind of complex logic or complex integration, or even for a scenario when we need to call asynchronous logic directly from LWC. So in that case, we need to use imperative apex invocation. So when we are working in general with large data sets and we need to show on the page hundreds of thousands of records in a table, so we never should render all of them, right? For this, we need to use some kind of lazy loading. We need to use virtualization or pagination in order to be able to display some subset of the data and, like with the ability to load more or search for required piece of data. So then let's talk about the component architecture, so composition. So when we're using LWC components, we need to make sure that we are trying to get the following points, like reusability, maintainability, and code clarity. So for this, what we could use is we could use one of the patterns known as a container or presentation pattern. It's when we have, let's say, container component, it's a high-level component, and it's actually responsible for logic, like, for example, calling Apex, Lightning Data Service, managing state, processing data. It often serves as a wrapper and may contain very, very minimal markup or sometimes even without markup. So then we have presentation layer, right, component. So it actually will be child level component, and it's only responsible for rendering data. It receives the data via API properties that should contain no Apex logic or complex state management. So it's really for rendering. So benefit that we are getting from here will be the following. This pattern makes presentation component highly reusable. So like, for example, if you will use anything like a display card component, so in that case, it could be used to display accounts, contact, or any kind of other custom object, which is simplify unit testing. So now let's talk about rendering and load optimization techniques. So in general, it will be good to use JavaScript getters and setters for computed properties and then avoid putting complex performance-intensive logic inside a getter as it runs every time and components re-render. Perform hybrid calculations once and store the result in a property. So it's important note. And then we have a condition rendering. So we have if true and if false, and it actually prevents us from rendering and run calculation for something which just don't really require for us to even be shown, and it could be just hidden as, like with the help of tabs or sections. And in that case, it's a form of lazy loading in general for redo. So then what we need to do else, we need to minimize re-renders and make sure that use of the check decorator on properties for primitive values like a string, number, reactivity is automatic. For objects and arrays, ensure you create a new instance when updating them immutably to trigger re-render only when necessary, right? It's really important, otherwise you will re-render it, like more often. So thank you very much, guys, for your attention today, and I wish you a good day.